And welcome back, everyone, to Pokemon Utrecht special event. I'm here yet again with the amazing Joe Bernard. We had an exciting round 6 that was covered just by our other great casters, Shay and Ross as well. But we've got a lot to look forward to for round 7, don't we?
Yeah, always nice to see a world champion on the stream, strutting his stuff. Didn't quite close out the victory there, but with a really interesting deck list. And it feels like there's been a lot of twists on classics today. Everyone's not just brought the same 60 that we've seen the last few weeks and months. Everyone is bringing something new to the table, which I love to see.
Yeah, considering it's the very last tournament for us in this format that we have had for some time, you know, like we said, it's very mature, it's very well sort of considered now when you're picking your decks. Still to see those little tweaks, those little innovation really makes it interesting and sort of exciting to watch some of the matchups that we've had so far. And, you know, we've seen some of the little tech cards in multiple different decks now. But what we're going to be bringing you now for our round 7 is a player who's been on stream quite recently as well. Carl Peters will be playing his water box deck once again, and he's in a great position again, and he'll be up against a UK friend of ours who's come back into the game, Oliver Barnett, playing a Mewlist.
Yeah, a really interesting matchup I think we have in store. I always like to walk the tables when I'm at tournaments, and Carl Peters is always someone who will make you look twice. You'll see his deck, and you'll have to sort of do a double take and see, wait a minute, what's he actually playing? Definitely known for having great results with really off-the-wall choices, and today is no different. He's going to be playing a Frostmoth water box here. You can already see with those prize cards, a couple of jellies in there. So he really is going to be giving on a show here. He is playing 2 copies of Drapion V in his deck, though, so he has a pretty straightforward game plan against the Mew. But as we know, we saw Drapion in the last round. It didn't mean curtains for Mew. There's still plenty of ways that Mew can keep up in a race with the multitude of hand disruption options that they have available to them. So it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world for Oliver to face, but he has some horrendous prize cards.
Yeah, and just as we see going into this first game of our round 7 feature match, and just as you touched on those emergency jellies on Carl's side, we look over to Oliver's, and you know, we had it just on the screen, purely looking at prizes. There's 3 Battle VIP passes staring at us in the face, alongside 2 Genesects as well. But we do kick things off with Carl going first here, going through his deck immediately to try and identify exactly what he has access to.
Yeah. And look at this, eyeing up Lost Vacuum. He knows one of the only ways that his plan can be thwarted is with Path to the Peak, shutting down the use of his Drapion V. So he's going to keep an eye on his 1 copy of Lost Vacuum, as well as his 1 copy of Lost City of his own. Typically, you'd like to see Mew players use a Lost City to get rid of Drapion, because no one plays 2 copies. If I just deal with a 1, that's all over. Whereas Carl here, he is actually choosing to play 2 and saying, you know what, I really want to solidify this matchup, especially when you have the Inteleon engine. In theory, you should be able to piece together ways, even under hand disruption, of bouncing Path to the Peak.
Yeah, and we do see the Sobble come down and a pass over to Oliver's side now. With this kind of Mew list, which has kind of evolved over time, we see, well, just as we're talking about, the Chromatic with the cross switch of one of those cards, a big head.
Huge.
And he's going to get a chance to see go through his deck.
There you go, 1 Battle VIP pass.
I mean, that's potentially all he needs.
Yeah.
But, you know, never ideal. At the same time, could be a good thing that they're just kind of lost in the prizes somewhere, not going to be drawn into as well.
Absolutely. And ironically, seeing as though Carl's deck is so heavily focused on using Drapion, if you're able to somehow piece together a board state with less Fusion Strike Pokemon in play, it can actually become more awkward for Carl to use his Drapion.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where now Oliver's just going to... I mean, he's immediately gone for his 2 Genesects. I'm not too sure if he's quite double-checked that what else he has access to right now, but he knows he's going to be just going through the usual game plan. However, I was about to say, with this Mew list now that has evolved over time to become a far more defensive type of Mew VMAX deck, whereas before with Fusion Energies and Meloetta, you're trying to be the aggressor, putting so much pressure on. By being defensive with cards like Path to the Peak, those Judges or Marnies, you're really just impacting your opponent's game plan as well. But Oliver here, off to a pretty good start, gets his Mew down with an energy, quick ball as well, discards the Roxanne. But yeah, I'm not too sure if he knows what he's really up against in Carl's list so far.
I think typically you'd be pretty pleased with just Sobble pass. But I imagine that Oliver still has the thought process that he's probably up against some sort of Palkia variant, more than likely. where they are likely using a Drapion. And I feel like Mew players have adapted to the point where they say, I have to always assume my opponent can Drapion me because it's just a tech that is sometimes played. So I really like the early judge from Oliver here. It's pretty much the most disruptive thing he can do. He's already got double Mew developed and his turn attachment. There's not much else he needs to do on his checklist, so try and throw some hand disruption in the mix before passing things over to Carl.
Yeah, it kind of feels like that Cramomatic was massive then.
Huge.
Did it heads. And with the hand now, he's actually got 3 Mews down on the board. He's just gone full Fuse and just trying to use that Fusion Strike system to draw as many cards as possible. Guess he knows those Genesects are there, and he passes over, and it's on to Carl with that Evo Incense.
A huge top deck of the Evolution Incense, actually, to get Drizzle. So I think Carl has just a ton of random other pieces in hand. I think it's just the likes of Crabominable, the Lost Vacuum, which is helpful, but just not yet. So very helpful that Carl is able to Irida here for Capacious Bucket and likely another piece of the Inteleon line.
Yeah,
actually eyeing up the Articuno here as a potential option.
Yeah, just one of those kind of single prize attackers which has great utility because it guarantees that paralysis. Does deal damage to itself, but then has those kind of unique cute techs of the emergency jellies to be able to heal itself back up. But it's really cool again to see Shady Dealings come back in the deck. It's something we've spoken about and mentioned so often in the previous format. And now that is kind of, you know, coming to the fore again. Carl played and done very well last time we had him on stream with a very similar deck, if not the same deck, and now he's doing it again 6-0 in this tournament, and he's the only one playing this kind of list.
Yeah, Claire just clarifying what was taken in what order. It was Incense for Drizzle, for Irida, for Inteleon, and it looks like it's going to just be a keep calling, most likely, from Carl. I really like this. You're trying to sort of just develop your board as much as possible. You still really enjoy having as many Inteleon pieces as possible. In this matchup, you will try and deal your way through the game. So just having a keep calling is absolutely fine. You'll leave yourself with only a 1 prize board. So if Oliver comes in swinging with a VMAX, you can punish that quite quickly.
Yeah, what I'm kind of interested from Carl's side is once he begins to develop the board beyond just the sort of the Shady Dealings opportunities there with the Drizzles and the Inteleons, he also has that Snom down right now, which of course will evolve into that Frostmoth with that amazing Ice Dance ability, being able to, as often as you like, attach water energies. Of course, he has kind of a plethora of water attackers himself, not even thinking about the Drapion at this current moment in time, so just kind of not really even revealing that he has anything like that. But of course, there's just the active Oricorio spot right now. But with the cross switcher, looks like Oliver is looking to target down the poor little Snom there.
Oliver reads it. He says, I don't like whatever you've got scheming on right now, Carl. I want to deal with a Snom. I'm not as familiar with it as all of these other Sobble. Why take out one when you're just going to have 3 others available to you anyway? Let's deal with your one-off Snom instead. And is going to thin the hand down with a quick ball before topping up quite nicely with Genesect here.
Yeah, has his own tokens for Fusion Strike system. Does look like he's played the power tablet, so has accessibility to just Psychic Leap and take the knockout here as well, preserving that Mew VMAX. Maybe,
I really
as
like
you
it.
mentioned, protecting himself from that expectation that there is a Drapion V somewhere in Carl's list.
Yeah, I really think that's an opportune moment for Oliver here, who has got enough Mew developed that you can do this quite freely, go back into Oricorio quite happily. We're going to see a Silene here. And we have to see Tails into a Heads. I wonder what's the most important resource to recover. I feel like even tablets can be very handy here. Going to be a Lost Vacuum to go on top. I feel like possibly that indicates that Oliver might be using a path at some point in his turn here. Wants to make sure he can have his own bounce before continuing with his turn.
Yeah, just as you mentioned, there's the lovely player rewards promo path to the peak there, as he's going to be using Psychic Leap, announces the attack, knows what he's doing. Looks like he's taking the prize first, potentially, but or is he deciding not to leap in?
Oh, possibly not going into the deck, just keeping it active with the path of the peak developed, saying, here, Carl, try and not only get your Drapion, but also you have to bounce this stadium with that lower hand size. However, we know there's at least a Drizzile here for Carl. He chose to use Scoop Up Net on the previous turn, so doesn't have access to the big Shady Deal, But just one Drizzle might be enough, seeing as though there was already a Lost Vacuum in hand.
Yeah, the poor Crab, vulnerable going to the Lost Zone there. Typically not a deck that will have a massive amount of Lost Zone cards, but, you know, still having to utilize that area of the playing field right now as Carl is looking to utilize all his Shady's dealings into the best combo cards possible. Love to see, hopefully, that sort of daisy chaining of Shady deals to be able to get all of those pieces together.
I definitely wouldn't mind a Shady deal for Irida and eventually find your way towards Quick Ball, because then you could maybe fin some of the less useful Pokemon from your deck, like Articuno or Quick Shooting Inteleon, that aren't quite as helpful, especially now with Crabominable in your Lost Zone. However, Carl is simply eyeing up Quick Ball, it seems, here. And keeping Iridas as outs, because you know that Oliver is likely going to try and respond with a Roxanne.
Yeah, definitely. And it looks like he's eyeing up that Articuno once again. It comes to the front of the deck. Of course, now with the path not in play, could go down the Drapion route.
I mean, you play two. I don't see why not.
Exactly. I was going to ask, like, because you have two, it seems like an opportune moment right now to just take the big free prizes here.
Going to see the Irida instead. So we are doing some gymnastics here, jumping in and out of the deck. That is a big part of this engine with Shady dealings. And now means Carl can search Quick Ball and Articuno for an opportune moment to get rid of it, or could even have another Shady deal as well this turn.
Yeah, there's
could even use Capacious Bucket, then, you know, pitch Water Energy into this, something like that.
So many options available to Carl, and that's the main reason of playing the sort of Shady deal, Drizzle, Inteleon engine, as we do see the Drapion come straight down onto the bench there from the target of the Quick Ball, and will be very likely taking a massive knockout here and really pushing Oliver onto the back foot and putting Carl in such a commanding position.
And it's so tough for Oliver, because we saw he proactively played one of his paths, did the right thing, the defensive play that you need to do, respected Drapion. It's still come out, it's still taking a big knockout here. We're going to see 60 damage onto a Drizzle on the bench, and Carl's going up 3 prize cards. Normally, you think now is the time to Lost City and take a response KO, because then you don't have to deal with the Drapion, but Carl is playing 2 copies, so I wonder if Oliver has been around the tables enough, seen enough of Carl's deck around him to have the heads-up play of looking for the second copy of Path to the Peak here.
Yeah, it's another big heads, another 6 on the die roll for Oliver, and he looks like he's eyeing up that power pad.
Yeah, I think Roxanne's been discarded already, so definitely a big play for Oliver here to put Carl on the lowest hand size possible if he is going to catch up. He'll be taking a 2 prize knockout at least this turn, but you have to imagine that Carl will literally wait around with a 1 prize board state for as long as possible after that.
Yeah, so still a couple of pieces needed here from Oliver as well. Still needs another Mew VMAX to be able to launch back into a retaliation big Technoblast attack. Does already have the choice belt, so dealing more than enough damage now. And we do see the first coin on Oliver's side to indicate he's using Fusion Sight System. Was that for a fresh 6?
I don't think it's quite 6, but it's a decent hand,
yeah.
And we have the Forest Seal Stone to fall back on as well, so plenty of draws, can weave in the Roxanne. At the same time, we see the turn attachment to the benched Mew, so still looking for the VMAX. Is going to continue to fin through the deck. Quick balling away Amani for no target, so he can continue to top up cards with Genesect here. Going through the actions, he still has a few things to find, but I think the Roxanne is definitely a big piece here.
So yeah, he's using the second Fusion Strike system here, drawing an additional 3 cards, I believe. Doesn't look like he's here. Yeah, finds the Lost City.
So Lost City, and I think everyone at home is thinking, oh, Carl plays 2 Drapion. This isn't going to be too effective, but it's game 1. Oliver doesn't know to play around a second copy of Drapion. I think most people in this spot would look for Lost City as their opportune, as like their ideal option here, because then in most cases there aren't 2 Drapion in lists.
No, not at all.
You cannot blame Oliver for going for this approach. It's going to be the Forest Seal Stone for Roxanne, and I believe we're going to have the refresh here. Carl just down to 2 cards, Oliver getting a fresh 6, knowing that he's already achieved everything he needs to this turn.
Yeah, so it's going to be massive here because Carl still has a fairly sizable deck.
Yeah.
And being put down to 2 cards, plus 1 for draw, could give Oliver the chance to kind of claw himself back into the game and level up the series, and then also go ahead on the prizes.
And look at Carl's expression. He looked at those 2 cards and was not too pleased.
I mean, we've seen a few different poor poker faces already on the stream, and then immediately think, hang on, we've still got a chance here. Still absolutely fine. But Oliver's still playing out his hand now. I think it's another Cryomatic. Would he go 3 for 3?
Yeah.
It is 3 for 3.
Must be nice, but I'm not really sure what else is too important at this stage, honestly. It feels like he's achieved everything he needs to this turn. Eyeing up Big Parasol, I think it was.
Yeah.
He already has Tool committed, so I'm not too sure about this one.
Yeah, potentially could have maybe saved it, knowing he'll very likely hit into a Battle VIP pass when he takes prizes, so long as he's sort of aware of his prizes that have been stuck there from his deck searches. But it looks like he's about to announce his attack for turn, take the 2 prizes. Lost zones that Drapion V there from Carl's side of the board. We do see the promotion of the energy Sobble.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense, and a level ball for Carl. So I think even this could be just a rebuilding turn. We know that he has that buffer of prize cards. He only needs to announce 1 more attack this game. There will be no more Psychic Leaping shenanigans, and it looks like we're here simply with the Shady Deal for Raihan, and there's a second copy, and Oliver says, well, you've seen me coming a mile away. Looks like you do not want to lose to Mew today. And we have an easy 1-0 so far for Carl here. Double teched for Mew, and it's paying dividends in this series.
Yeah, 100%, and this is why Carl is currently 6-0.
Gotta help.
It'd be, again, super interesting to find out what he's actually matched up against so far in the tournament. Has he hit other Mews? You know, he's put in these 2 Drapions for this specifically, right? I mean, of course, it can technically still be attacker if it needed to do so with water energies attached, coming down from the Frostmoth, for example, but that's not ideal. You want to be utilizing its free attacking to be able to take massive knockouts on Mew VMAXs and take games like this with ease.
Yeah, it's really nice to just have that sigh of relief of saying, okay, I have a very easy route here. I know that Mew can be disruptive. I know they can give me a hard time, but if I give myself a 1-prize board state and only use Drapion when they're ready to rumble, I should have a good way of up trading here. For Oliver, now that he's seen that second copy, the game completely changes. It's no longer a game of trying to use Lost City, it's trying to path to the peak, and path to the peak again. We saw how he used Silene in the first game. Now it's going to be a priority to re-establish path for the majority of the game.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think just some of these little things that maybe would have brought out more of those techs, so that double Drapion V maybe a little bit earlier, if he was able to Psychic Leap back in, sort of hide away the VV
We both
Max.
thought it was going to be a Psychic Leap turn.
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually, again, I don't think it was a terrible play at all, leaving it into the active spot, but it's just because Carl is in a position to just almost counter a lot of the moves that Mew can make. And, you know, like you said, it pays dividends just to have those cards. You saw him draw those 2 cards and gave a bit of a funny look, but it was probably just a funny look going, well, that's it, I've won.
Yeah, I'm just a card away, I guess. And what I'm really excited about is how differently Oliver will play this game. He has to completely change up his strategy from what we saw in the first game. I think he'll be far more disciplined with those Psychic Leaps. I think it's very likely we see the triple Mew board state. I think we'll still try and cling on to those hand disruption options as much as possible. It's just path now takes the forefront here, because you know that Lost City isn't really doing too much for you. And let's not forget that Carl's deck, it came together quite nicely with a few shady deals there. He got fairly fortunate from the Roxanne, but he does have a lot of wacky cards in the deck, which, you know, even just looking at some of these prize cards, the likes of Flannery making it into the deck list, there are some sort of clunky cards that he can just draw in the wrong order and not really get into the game. So we'll see how things go as we jump into this game 2, and we have a Cram-O-Matic Tails. I wonder if there's another Cram here for Oliver. I think we're all in on this.
Yeah, I don't think he has much going. He
we
does
do get the
50-50. That actually gives him, you know, he's in the game now. He's had to sacrifice the power pad, which is a bit unfortunate. The power tab is a little bit less useful sometimes, other than maybe some of those Psychic Leap plays, but he is now able to get into the game. As we have a look at Oliver's prizes as well, nothing too crazy this time. Something a little bit more playable and workable with, as he does target the Genesect V and the Mew V onto the bench here from that Battle VIP pass.
A monster Cram-O-Matic, getting Oliver exactly what he needs, getting going in the game. He may even be able to thin a couple additional cards here. an early Lost City, knowing now that Path is going to be much more important for him on the future turns. We saw one card from Genesect and just a pass. Not quite firing fully here, but has just enough to get him into the game. Carl has started with Manaphy, which is far less good for him because he would really prefer to use Keep Calling as he did in that first game. So I wonder if he has access to any scoop-up nets, because we do know there is at least a Sobble in hand. Carl's also going to go through, make sure he has his 2 bounces to Path of the Peak and his 2 Drapion. They are both there, fortunately enough for him. So overall, he can feel pretty content about his situation.
Yeah, it's one of those decks where going second generally is quite fine, because all Carl really wants to do is set up his Sobbles and Drizzles just into play and get them all ready for him to combo into those Drapion Vs and take those big knockouts. So he'll just be eyeing up to try and set up that board once again. We saw him actually Keep Calling on his second turn without really having to do too much. You know, we saw Carl in a previous tournament where he did lose to Miłosz, I believe it was a Vikavolt player, just because he was stunted from being able to get more Sobbles out or more Drizzles out. In this scenario where he has additional turns, because again, we're seeing another single prize deck, he's not really as quickly on the clock.
Yeah, Oliver getting to know Radiant Alakazam. I don't think it's going to be too big of a card in this matchup. As you know, Carl's deck is trying to target different matchups in different ways. And, you know, simply playing out the Hisuian heavy ball here could still be an option to be put into play, just to play around possibly Escape Rope. And that's exactly why it is coming into play, I would imagine, here, as Carl can end on a Keep Calling once again. Going wide, filling the board with Drizzle, because as we know, that's how he can cherry-pick key cards from the deck and make sure those Drapion plays are online.
Yeah, like I said, it's still fantastic. I'm going to say it again, fantastic to see those Sobbles, Drizzles, and Inteleons coming back to being such a great way of tutoring to the card that you need. Such a different engine to what we now see in some of the top decks right now. So we do see Oliver with a
straight away a judge. Didn't have many other playables in hand, so let's try and reload this way, whilst also trying to be a little bit more awkward for Carl. But Oliver actually needs a lot more now. We have the energy established, but we do need to move this Genesect V out the way in order to start launching an attack here. So still a bit to do for him, as we are going to see a fresh 4 cards here.
Yeah, just access to the 4 cross switches and 1 switch, I believe, already attachment for turn. There's the Path to the Peak as well, and a Quick Ball. So can start Fusion Strike system for additional cards here, as we see a Quick Ball of a Quick Ball. Yeah,
definitely important to establish a second Mew here, because you know when Drapion's around, you got to expect that you can be 1-hit KO'd. So getting your response Mew is going to be important. I don't think we've seen the turn attachment yet. It was just a slammed judge, so we can turn attach retreat. Is that right?
I think he may have attached already
before
to
the judge.
Mew. Yeah, I think he top decked to DTE.
Right, a bit more fishing to be done then here.
Oh, there's
cross switcher. Is
that double? That was double cross switcher.
Well, if so, we're in good shape. That's looking pretty nice.
So he's targeting the Radiant Alakazam.
Wow, interesting. I think this is because you're not doing a Psychic Leap turn. You just want to get rid of the higher hit point Pokemon so you're not blocked later on.
There's another Fusion Strike system for a further 2 cards. Does have the Choice Belt, a Silene, and the Path as well.
I kind of like using the Path of the Peak.
Yeah, I feel like you have to at this stage.
You've seen your opponent play 2 Drapion. You've seen their board state. They're not really attacking with anything but Drapion against you. So let's try and, we have bounced the stadium, so Alakazam gets to fight another day, perhaps.
He's also, Oliver's just immediately drawn the prize of another Lost City, so he can go back into drawing more cards next turn as well, trying to then dig for another Path to the Peak.
Yeah. Well, I think Oliver's sort of seen what Carl's up to. He's seen that if Carl's going to get into the game, it's going to be via stadium bounces. So Oliver can pretty casually path here.
Ooh, it's just a
pass from Carl. So yeah, no access to Drizzile. This is kind of that buffer we were talking about. He's going to try and keep that 1 prize board state as much as possible, but this is hopefully where Oliver can start to pounce.
Oh, he does decide to
really
bounce his
by
own
this, to be
Path to
honest.
the Peak. Yeah, knowing he's going to be facing multiple Drapion Vs at this point. I don't know, I guess maybe he just wants to get into the game and draw more cards, but if he's seen Carl not do anything, kind of makes sense to just keep attacking. Yeah,
well, he Techno-Blasted last turn, so he couldn't just announce another attack. So I think that's why we're seeing more cards being drawn from Oliver here. But even just like a retreat into an Oricorio play isn't that bad. When your opponent's passing into you, I think being patient is like completely fine, because Path seems to be a crucial card for you.
but he's drawn into his second copy. But at the same time, it does mean he's only got one copy left to work with as soon as one of the Drapion Vs come down.
Yeah, pretty sketchy for Ollie here. I think he has drawn into, Ultra Ball, so we can make another VMAX, but it's always dangerous, like we've said. When you're using a VMAX just to take one prize, that's very helpful for Carl. And now there's 2 VMAX already established on the board in play.
Yep.
That's exactly what Carl wants to see, because he just needs to attack twice to win the game.
Yeah, whilst Oliver still has to announce at least 5 attacks, it looks like. Well, let's say at least. Most likely 5 attacks, because single prizes are just always going to be, what Carl will be offering, unless he wants to be taking a massive knockout. And at this stage, there's a lot to go through for Oliver. Right now, this quick ball also digging out another Genesect.
So now there's no Psychic Leap plays available for Oliver either. Oliver already has to retreat to attack with his new VMAX on the bench this turn. But shutting off that opportunity is quite worrying for me, I think, because it's a great way that you can undo any random chip damage that Carl does.
Yeah, it's some really interesting plays here from Oliver. And, when you're in the moment, your mind goes through a multitude of different things, right? So he's obviously eyed up some other way, maybe just applying enough pressure to Carl to try and just...
Is it any good?
No, it didn't look like
he didn't look like
he drew anything.
This is really bad. It's going to be a pay retreat into Ice Cube as a better Pokemon to sacrifice by the looks of things.
An initiative still with Oliver right now. This is
huge for Oliver.
Left. There's the energy attachment.
Yeah, Carl has a turn attachment. Does he go back to another Sobble here for the pivot? Yeah, it seems to be the best route. Yeah, just Clara, Jelly, and Wash Water. Yeah, these are awful cards for Carl. He's literally like one piece away, because he has a Stadium Bounce for when he needs it, but he just has no access to Drizzle whatsoever.
But again, now it's back over to Oliver, where he's now holding his second path to the peak. Will he want to just play it down, like thinking about, if Carl all he needs is a Drapion V and he has the retreat anyway? That's one way to ask another question of Carl. Do you have another piece to stop this? But it doesn't look like it. It looks like he might just be going for another Technoblast at this stage.
Yeah, well, Carl's done pretty much nothing, so it seems like let's just keep on the charge.
Top deck.
Another turn for Carl. It's just an Articuno. My goodness, Oliver is simply announcing attacks, and it's doing the job. It's going to be another Protect the Sobble project.
And another energy goes on.
Another attachment for Carl, and just another pass. Oliver has got to feel a lot better about this situation now, because if he simply takes a knockout this turn, even if there is a Drapion response, you have an easy knockout on the Drapion. So it feels like Oliver's found a really great opportunity here to get himself back into a good spot.
He's back into the path to the peak plays now. Is back down. Doesn't want to lost zone that Articuno as Carl does.
We're going to a game 3.
Yeah. Wow. A different turn of events. I'm lost for words.
Well, even though Carl is 6-0, let's not forget his deck is certainly quite consistent. There are going to be these games where you just have the wrong pieces in the opening stages, and Oliver charging through, wasting no time, putting pressure on. The early judge was essential there, and put Carl just in a really bad spot and just had no responses.
Yeah, all he needed to do was that one judge, and it stuck, right? It didn't give anything to Carl at all, even with 3 additional draws, or 3 more turns, as it were. And yeah, as you mentioned, Oliver just able to just plow through those single prizes. It was just one card away, really, for Carl to just basically put himself in such a great commanding position. But, that's sometimes what happens with decks that have to play these sort of thicker lines of evolution Pokemon. But at the same time, they just need to jump over that first hurdle of getting the Pokemon down, and then shady dealings into their next combo pieces. Yeah,
we've seen the highlights of this deck where it just runs so smoothly. Was able to simply attack 2 times with Drapion, and it was so easy. It seemed like it was very advantageous and favorable for Carl. And then we've seen the other side of the coin, where a judge just puts you in panic mode, and you're top decking just air for a few turns, where you see the likes of the Clara, where there's like 2 copies in the deck. We saw like the Flannery, the Jellies, all of these cards that just aren't too helpful. And that's exactly what Oliver's going to be looking for to get that advantage once again in game 3. He needs to try and disrupt that flow from Carl.
Yeah, and it's just this discussion around that defensive Mew once again, which really is paying trumps when you're just stopping your opponent from really doing anything whilst you're still, you know, drawing so many cards through your deck and then playing the right defensive card to stop your opponent from taking those massive knockouts. And it's just such a great position to be in. Now,
I was going to ask you whether or not Carl wanted to go first or second in this game 3, but it looks like he has chosen to go first. I thought, seeing as though we've seen the keep calling a couple times, I thought Carl may try and lean into that a little bit more. But regardless, Carl has been able to establish double Sobble early, so has to be pretty happy with his opening turn.
I think generally it's okay, right, to go first. In this matchup particularly, with Mew not really applying pressure on their first turn, going second regardless, you can still keep calling on your second turn after you've gone first. And again, you're a single prizer. You're not really on a massive clock initially anyway. So it gives you that chance to kind of build up your board one turn. Maybe there's a chance there. And then you've still got a second turn, you know, with that water energy attached to the active. There's no threat of this Mew doing anything to it.
Yeah, and Carl's hand is looking much more usable now. He has Irida for next turn. And like you say, can end on a keep calling at the very least. Oliver starts off with an Ultra Ball and is going to be able to thin his hand down a little bit more here. Double turbo energy to his active Mew. And we're going to see an early Lost City once again here. And it's actually just going to be vacuumed away, so it's going to be a 2-card draw for Genesect here to see if Oliver can do anything this turn. VIP pass, that's huge! The big exhale from Oliver, letting Carl know that he had nothing outside of that.
That is incredible. I feel like Oliver's first turns in each 3 games now haven't been very strong. He's had to rely on a Cramomatic heads flip or a Fusion Tri-System for 2. And after having to not really utilize that Lost Vacuum at all. But there we are. Oliver's straight into the game now. Now gets to draw 4 cards. Has a Marnie now as well.
Just like that,
it's kind of swings and roundabouts. Here we go. He does play the Marnie.
And that's one of the strengths of the Fusion Strike system. You need so little to get into the game. And now suddenly Oliver is pretty much got everything he needs this turn and is hand disrupting Carl once again. It's everything you need. I feel like outside of just a retreat here, you're pretty much happy with your turn.
Yeah, are you retreating into the other Mew or the other Genesect? Are you looking to utilize those switch cards?
Yeah, I feel like if you get an Oricorio, there's an argument to go into Genesect because it can actually tank a Drapion hit at that point with the Oricorio. But you have seen some cheeky things like Radiant Alakazam, so it might even put you off as well. So it looks like Oliver's just going for another draw option here, which is completely understandable. An extra Genesect V hitting the board. But I would like to see that final space be kept open for a Mew here.
Yeah, I feel like utilizing Psychically, it does seem like such a strong play because then you're just limiting it to just 2 prizes on the board. There's another Cramomatic. He's been on fire with these.
Well, Oliver is 6-0. It seems to be his day so far. And when you flip like this, it's easy to see why.
Actually incredible. I've never seen someone flip so many. Oh, there may be some people who've hit 100% in some of their series, but you know, I think he's only hit 1 Tails maybe.
Yeah, it's a dream run for Oliver here, even overcoming a double Drapion. So like in that second game, it's great to see. And now we see a clean Genesect for 5 additional cards. There are more quick ball to be had here.
Does have the extra energy in hand as well. So looks like he's filling it up. Let's see what he actually does go for in this scenario.
Yeah, the Oricorio is in the prize cards. I hadn't noticed that initially. So it seems like it's a pretty easy choice here. And simply going into one of those Mew makes a good amount of sense here. Protect your double turbo energy and end it there.
Yeah, seems like a pretty good turn for Oliver, despite going seconds, you know, hitting that battle VIP blast, being incredible for that moment and just being able to Marnie. Loads of options for Carl as I just have a quick scout of his hand there with multiple ball searches, and I think there was an Irida there as well.
Carl's smiling away. He's trying to, I think, bait Oliver here because his hand is actually excellent. He has Irida, he has level ball, he has so much going for him. So a bit of table patter going on right now from Carl. Interesting to see. He knows that Oliver is going to be slamming judges at times. So if you say, well, that's all I got, buddy, I've got nothing else, this is looking terrible, you might find a way to avoid a judge this turn.
Yeah, is this one of those things where we finally see, like, mind games come into this?
Will Oliver sniff it out?
It's honestly, as we already mentioned, this was what Carl done in the game 1. All he did was just get 2 Sobble out and then keep calling, and he's done it exactly the same thing again. And this time, Oliver's just having to play out his hand, play out his turn without really having too much knowledge of what Carl's doing.
Yeah, I wonder if Oliver sort of falls for the patter. I really like it from Carl, you know, just give a grimace and a smile to your opponent.
Exactly.
And look, he's got away with not being judged. It's going to be a Silene instead from Oliver here.
Double
It's
tails.
a double tails, not great for him, especially because he got rid of Power Pad, I believe, earlier on in this game as well. So that's going to be a little bit awkward for him.
Or was Power Pad the second game?
Oh, was that the second game? They're all merging to one. There's been so many Fusion Strike systems at this point.
You draw so many cards that it all
be.
becomes a blur. I think the only thing was the lost vacuum, right? That he
that's
had
true,
to
that's
remove
true.
his own stadium to draw the two.
Just one additional card from another Fusion Strike system here. Oliver does have Path of the Peak at least, so he's trying to make it as awkward as possible for Carl. We haven't seen any power tablets, so it is likely going to be a Techno Blast, and it is just going to be a one prize knockout here. Carl even top decks Lost Vacuum. His hand is too good right now.
Yeah, this is where, and with the balloon as well, he already has that pivot option to go into anything that he wants. So it's just the case of just getting that Drapion V. Is that in hand as well?
He has Quick Ball, he has Lost Vacuum. And that's before all of his deals. It's just he's set.
Yeah, what more could you want? Maybe an energy if you really mattered, but it probably doesn't even. I mean, he could grab it with the Irida anyway. With the
has Air Balloon,
bucket.
can go scoop up netting. I think really the only debate for Carl here is how can I do this as efficiently as possible whilst keeping as many outs in my deck to see me through to the next Drapion play? Yeah. How can I remove some of these jankier Pokemon out of my deck? Can I remove any energy cards? Because all of these are real dud draws that he never wants to see again. So he's already got that amazing turn. How can I start getting rid of some of these other jankier cards from my deck?
Yeah, we saw in game 2 Carl just drawing into absolutely nothing, and this time it's the complete opposite. Multiple balls, all the pivots that you want, the Pokemon he needs to attack with, the stadium bounce, the Irida, it's just all coming together at one time for Carl. That little cheeky smile and grimace when he kept calling.
Never trust Carl Peters. That's what we've learned today.
It's like amazing little mind games or little just extra percentages you can get from playing this game of Pokemon.
We've actually discussed poker faces on stream quite a few times today. It just seems to have come up in different moments, and Carl Peters is showing how it can be so important. There should be a water energy in Carl's lost zone rather than discard pile here from his lost vacuum, which is a small thing we need to track. But I don't think overall it's going to be too impactful based on how Carl is trying to navigate his prize map. We will see one shady deal here, and I have to think this is just going to be for more Nets or Evolution Incense or even Irida for the following turn, because there's not much else he needs right now.
No, exactly that. It's beginning that opportunity to daisy chain those shady dealings to be able to find those combo pieces. Obviously, Oliver will be looking to try and disrupt that again, likely with a Path and a Roxanne where possible. We'll have to, again, dig for that Mew VMAX because he does have one prized. So there's only one remaining in this.
Shady dealing for Flannery, of all things.
Just to get it out of the deck.
Carl just grinning. he fully embraces the fact that he plays some silly cards in his deck. He knows why they're in here. We don't necessarily. You know? He's playing 5D chess with his deck list, but he's making it work, and you love to see it.
Yeah, I'm looking for that opportunity where if we happen to speak to Carl to just work out what each of his little tech cards, what works for what. But yeah, he does take the massive knockout. Again, a massive free prizes from that Drapion V, that dynamic tail dealing 190 times 2 for that weakness. Of course, dealing 60 to his own Drizzle there. But we do see Oliver now trying to react to this play and looking for the best way of just dealing with what's in front of him.
Carl already shuffling his hand. He pretty much knows what's happening here. Air Balloon was lost vacuumed away. There should also be a water energy in there, just to clarify. But again, must stress it's probably not going to be impactful too much. Oliver does have Path and Judge. He doesn't have a way into... Or is this the Forest Seal Stone, actually? Is he going to upgrade for a Roxanne instead here? Or is he just going to go for a VMAX? He could secure the guaranteed KO and just go VMAX because we've already seen the power tablet. Or you can upgrade for a Roxanne and hope to draw back into the likes of your Path of the Peak and your VMAX. It is going to be the Roxanne here.
Yeah, look, it looks...
Wow, so now
Yeah,
Oliver
it's
has
just
to
a
hit
draw.
VMAX from this Roxanne. He's pathed out his own Genesects. They're no longer available. He has to draw them from these physical 6 cards.
Yeah, either the VMAX or an Ultra Ball, just a way to get it in some way, shape, or form. He's already used that Forest Sealstone.
Yeah, Ultra Ball and VMAX in the prizes as well. So this is a bit of a gamble for Oliver.
Yeah, this is his last stand, as it were. And he's
First card.
First card. Don't worry about it.
Here I am trying to hype up the situation, and first card, no worries, no drama, nothing to see here.
Nothing to worry about. Absolutely fine. Does have Chromatic for a VIP pass.
Honestly, I'm just loving Carl's theatrics again. he's back to rubbing his head and just saying, "Oh, what a terrible situation I'm in. This is so hard for me." You just cannot trust this man anymore.
He's looking at Oliver. Oliver's hitting all these heads with Chromatic. Carl's just like, what can I really do? Mew's just getting everything at once. It's got the Roxanne, it's got the Path, it's got the Mew VMAX. I'm still little old me with some Sobbles and Drizzards.
Poor me. See a power pad from Oliver just getting back. I believe it was Silene and Roxanne back into the deck. Oliver will be taking a 2-prize knockout. This is huge, and he has put Carl down to just a 2-card hand. I think it was a Crabominable. I'm not sure what else is in this hand. It could actually be bad this time. You never know.
Has it happened again? Has it stuck yet again? He does have it.
It's the big deal.
He's a big dealer.
Yeah, which means we should be able to find the Stadium Bounce and Quick Ball. As long as we have those pieces, we're all good for Carl here. There's a VMAX in the active position. With no Lost City, it can simply be a Clara recovering back Drapion, and that's going to be it.
Yeah, and Oliver's extended his hands, and Carl has taken this round 7 feature match with that incredible sort of combo deck into the double Drapion V. It's just an amazing way of kind of building a deck to almost put yourself in a very comfortable position against one of the best decks in the format right now.
Yeah, it's a really wacky rendition of the deck. Sometimes we've seen the Palkia V-Star incorporate this Jelly Articuno package alongside quick shooting, but in Carl's case, he's actually just going for Crabominable and the 1/1 Frostmoth line and having Miltank and all these other wonky cards that he's just making work together. And I really cannot wait for the interview that I'm sure we're going to have with him momentarily, because we need a real deep dive into this deck list, because it's something that I've just not seen before.
No, exactly that. I mean, like I said, I caught a glimpse of it previously, but he just wasn't able to get much going.
Yeah.
I wonder if that Snom benching was also another little bit of a bait for Oliver to go, I need to target this down.
Right.
Like, Frostmoth is a problem.
Yeah.
Who has Drapion Vs in their deck, and then all of a sudden turns around with this massive wild-style attacker, a wild tackle, and just dealing and taking 6 prizes in 2 turns.
Yeah, and Carl's 7-0 now. He's only basically like 3 wins and maybe like a few IDs away from top 8. His goalposts have shifted. He's already in day 2. He's secured. He's safe. And now he's just looking at just a few more wins. And, when you're at this higher record with basically a counter toolbox, you pretty much can be safe in the knowledge that you're facing other top-tier archetypes. Yeah. So he's got out of the sort of mire where sometimes there are ties and losses and you can come up against basically anything. He's pretty much expecting to see more of the same from now on.
Yeah, and it's in such a good position, as you already mentioned, to make it into that top 8. But just, when we get into these larger tournaments now, yes, everyone loves to make it to day 2 with 19 points. But if you're in a position like Carl, where you can keep clawing more points into your day 1, and then putting yourself in such an easy position for day 2. We saw this in Bochum with Edwin Mesman going 9-0 and then undefeated in day 2, and just having a really easy day, well, 2 days, as it were, going into the top 8 for Bochum as well. So Carl's putting himself in a fantastic spot just to try and take down this tournament with this wacky deck, and I'm super excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, and for Oliver, commiserations. I mean, he put up a really good fight there. He was put in that really awkward position. Double Drapion is always hard to play around. You can do your best. You're playing the hand disruption. You're using Path of the Peak. But at the end of the day, you kind of just have to shrug and say, well, Carl kind of had it in for me there. He was really heavily teched for that matchup. And, of course, he's still on 6 wins. So Oliver will also be progressing into the next other tournament. So we'll also follow him throughout the rest of this weekend.
Yeah, as both players are still, you know, fighting it out for those championship points, looking for those that world's invite all the way to go to Yokohama, Japan. You know, this special event offering the same amount of points as a regional is fantastic, and it goes to show in a place like this where we've had specials where they haven't had this kind of record numbers before, and we have like over 700 players, or maybe more when we start to include the juniors and the seniors as well. You know, it's just such a fantastic opportunity, and I know Oliver's back in the game because he saw Japan as a world location. It's fantastic to see him back in the game. Yeah,
many players always have had that on their bucket list, and then going to the World Championships, giving them that place to congregate with a bunch of friends, it gives you that amazing excuse. That's why everyone is here this weekend. They want to make their way to Yokohama, and as you said, so many championship points on the line, so it's going to be, you know, really stiff competition. That's why we have over 800 players here at the tournament trying to get their way, book their ticket to Yokohama.
Yeah, and that's it from us for round 7. We're just going to go to a very short break and very quickly go into an interview that we're all excited for, where we get the chance to speak to Carl and his water box deck. See you in a moment.
Right, well, I'm now joined by my new hero, the saviour of the format, Carl, with the absolutely crazy Alakazam box decks, as he likes it to be called. So, Carl, I know you've been playing this deck for a while. I've seen it, you know, dotting about. You've been doing quite well. Yeah. I'm sure the people want to know why. How have you come to this deck and why?
So, I play like since the 90s, right? So I'm an old school player. I'm retired, so I only played this season for Yokohama, and this was my main target. And I play always like the raw secret decks, and I don't want to play like Mew, Lugia, Confi. That's my honey spot is like the more secret rough raw deck lists.
Okay, love that, love that. So talk to us about some of the cards that you play in, because I got to see the list, and let me tell you viewers, you didn't get to see everything in the list during that best of 3. There's some crazy cards in there. So we mentioned shortly off stream that you like the deck to be called Alakazam box. Why Raging Alakazam?
So the most intelligent boxes are playing like Greninja against Comfy. So and in my own playtest, I got the feeling that Alakazam's much better card against like Lugia, for example. Because you can prepare with Articuno the board that the Lugia player have like only 3 turns, and after the 3rd turn they haven't any bird keepers left, any switches left, and there's no spot to attack like the old school 2013 Asgore deck. So like it's a hard lock, you paralyze, and then in the end you kill the Pokemon, the Lugia, with your Inteleon or with your Alakazam, so that your opponent can't attack, because the next new Pokemon that got active get the next attack from Articuno.
I see. So you try and go for the perma-lock past turn 3. Okay, love that, love that. Talk to us about Frostmoth, because obviously I would imagine it's an important part of the deck, but I think you only play a 1-1, right?
Yeah, I play 1-1 because I need the crab. How's it called in English? This one?
Abominable. Abominable.
I need this one against Duraludon decks, Arceus decks, and Gudra decks.
Right.
And the only way to cheat 3 energy cards in one turn is with the Frostmoth.
Okay.
I do have I have spots for example, for Nessa, for the bring 4 energy cards back from a discard pile, so I can kill like in Duraludon from nowhere.
Right.
I make like the ability from Alakazam, 20 from Italian, and then play Nessa and go wild, yeah.
Okay, Nessa was actually one card I wanted to ask about, but now it makes sense. You can just use the Frostmoth to maximum value. Love that. Talk to us about the Flannery then.
The Flannery. Yeah, the Flannery is, I played against Andrew Gardner in Australia, the international. So, and I won on this day all my games against Lugia, but he beat me with the Wash Energy. So Wash Energy on Luminion says your Articuno doesn't work. So, and I need a way to win against the opponent with Wash Energies in it. So that's the reason for the Flannery, so that I can beat Lugia deck with Wash Energies.
Big brain. It's all making sense. It's all making sense. So, like you said, you always like to play road decks, new decks, innovative decks. For people watching who are like yourself, who might want to play, you know, off-the-wall new decks, kind of like me, well, how would you like look at a meta and think, right, this is the stuff I can target, and then how to actually target it? What's your sort of thought processes when you build these decks?
I think the most important thing you can do at home is build the 3 to 4 top decks in the meta.
Okay.
Look at Limitless, look at the top lists, copy them at home, print your proxies, something like that, and then play and get your experience. And you see like little cracks in the strategies of the decks, like there is not endless energy cards that you can search in a Lugia deck. There is not, you need to retreat with your Mew and so on. And I think from game to game, you learn more and more what you can do and what you need to figure out to beat the tier 1 decks.
Okay, love that. It's kind of similar to what I'm doing for EUIC as well. So I'm glad I'm on the right lines, apparently. So let's go back to this event. You're now 7-0.
Yeah.
Fantastic. How are you feeling right now?
So with my 6-0 today, I got my invite to Yokohama.
Yes,
so
well done.
Everything
Let's
I
go.
want to have. So and everything else is on top for me. So yeah, when I can reach top 8, it's really cool. So maybe then I will go for day 2 Worlds. Yeah. But I'm really happy, and I have a lot of fun with my deck. I love my deck. I love to meet new players from around the world, and it's a really nice experience here.
Okay, absolutely love to hear that. My last question then for you, Carl. So you said you've been building these road decks. Have there been any other ideas that just haven't quite made the cut?
I tested tested, for example, the Quad Weezing deck.
Okay,
so that's really interesting. Or yes, I mean that's the last tournament in Europe in this format.
Yes,
so
of course.
there's much more
Yeah.
room to find something for the next big tournament in Europe and London. So
look at his eyes widen, everyone.
Maybe there's something in the box. We will see it. We will see it.
He is very excited for that new format, as I am, and I'm sure many of you are, guys, you are as well at home. But thank you so much for your time, Carl. I'm ecstatic to see you're doing well with your own creation. Love to see that. We're going to go to a quick break here, and it